Now, the transmission company of Nigeria has stated that the ongoing repair work in the power sector was responsible for Thursday's grid collapse. TCN spokesperson Ndidi Mba disclosed this in a statement. According to her, the national grid experienced a disturbance at approximately 11:29 a.m. on Thursday, caused by a sudden rise in frequency from 50.33 Hertz to 51.44 Hertz. Mba further stated that recovery efforts began immediately and the Abuja access was restored within 28 minutes and recovery is still ongoing. Although the transmission company of Nigeria is yet to comment on the most recent grid disturbance, Thursday's development adds to the growing cases of grid collapses in the country. However, in a bid to clarify details of a nationwide grid collapse that left millions in darkness, Bayo Onanuga, President Tinubu's special advisor on information and strategy, took to his X account on Wednesday, sharing a detailed explanation from the National Orientation Agency. Now, joining us is Professor Yemi Oke, a senior advocate of Nigeria and a professor of energy electricity law at the University of Lagos. And he'll be joined by Dr. Abubakar Atiku Tambuwal, an engineer and former MD of the Transmission Company of Nigeria, board director at Abuja Electricity Distribution Company. Good morning, gentlemen, and welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
Well, Prof, it's good to have you again on the morning show. I see the badge on your shirt.
Oh, okay.
It says,
of the solution.
In search of the solution.
That's been my motto anyway.
And it's very instructive
that's
this
my
morning.
signpost.
It's very instructive this morning because 10 times since January 2024, we have had the grid collapsing. If they don't say it is fire, they will say it is vandalism. This latest one, they have told us that it's because they are conducting repairs. We can bet, I think you once predicted in one of your lectures, that there will be grid collapse up to 14 times. So we're on number 10 before December. I won't be surprised if it happens again. So what exactly is the solution with this incessant grid collapse? Is it repairs? Is it overhaul? Is it, in fact, the unbundling of TSN or whatever phrase, should be used to decentralize the TCN? And then the same question for you, Dr. Tambuwal. But let's start with Professor Oke in the Lagos studio.
Thank you very much for that important question. I think we started too late. I will agree with the fact that now we've started taking the right steps. But too late, because we ought to have started taking those steps years back. The starting point is to realize clearly that the world is actually going off-grid. The direction of the world is to go completely off-grid. And I was kind of encouraged by the position of the minister recently when he declared that, the country will be looking in the direction of state grid, regional grid, and what have you. And that's like almost 19 years late because all this had been advocated right from the time of the late Yaradua. Though we liken it to our own pipeline, which is very weak. Any attempt to put petroleum product in is going to bust. The same thing for our transmission infrastructure. It's very weak. And I had a kind of a problem with the policy direction. Of course, when we headed in the direction of Manitoba Hydro for transmission management contract, I kicked against it. They said maybe because of my other part. Of course, I wanted to publish it directly in Manitoba. I did. I published Manitoba, University of Manitoba Law Journal. I wanted to tell the Canadian audience that they were not going to be successful with their attempt in Nigeria. They thought, Yemi won't. I said, well, I think I hold the country that patriotic duty to tell the world the truth. And I said Manitoba Hydro was going to die a natural death. Manitoba Hydro died a natural death. Nobody knew what happened to the transmission management contract. The same transmission infrastructure. Thereafter, forth and back, not the current administration, then we had the Siemens. And myself and Raywan, we were in another, Bismarck, we were in another studio. Well, like I said, I wasn't as optimistic as to the miracle that the Siemens was going to do. Because the evidence is there. I mean, I can't really feel it. And now, Siemens has been there for the same transmission overhaul or enhancement or whatever. The world, we actually need to embark on transmission disembarkation. Just get off completely from this transmission thing. Because the same thing when we had problems with our refineries. We turn it around, we turn it in, we turn it out. Oh, you know what? Let's now look the way of Dangote's and the modular refineries and the rest. So I foresee a situation in which we'll actually start a gradual phasing off of our grid because it's very weak and dilapidated. We have idle megawatts that cannot go on the grid. Any attempt to put idle megawatts on the national grid is going to burst. And last 3 weeks when we had 2 weeks when we had this kind of blackout, I did the mathematics. I felt the current tradition has actually fared slightly well because previously I predicted like 15, 16, in October. Up until recently, we had about 10, and there's a kind of slight drop in it. But this one was, of course, according to the press statement that we read, which I also read, was due to an attempt to put things right. But then, too late. Well, I agree with the fact that we started doing the right thing, particularly under the current administration. It's been neglected for too long, but it's never too late to start.
Okay, Dr. Tambuwal, let's come to you in the Abuja studio. What is the way forward? I know that you're on the board of Abuja Disco. I know people from the Disco, they talk about energy theft. They talked about tariffs not being cost reflective. But in any case, what is the way forward? What is the solution? Because it's embarrassing that a country of over 200 million people will be generating just a little over 3,000 megawatts.
Yeah, it's quite unfortunate. I have concurred with what Professor Oki said. We need to look at the grid holistically and see what measures we can take to strengthen it and to stabilize it. It's not easy to say that we are going to fragment it immediately. We still need the grid because certain parts of the country are still not in a position to have suitable network in terms of transmission and distribution. So if you say you're going to regionalize it, those other sectors of the country or regions of the country will definitely suffer. Generation is lopsided. It is mostly in the southern part of the country. We have here in the north, we don't have adequate generation, so there is always voltage issues there. We know when stability of power depends on voltage and frequency, which has to be in a predetermined limit. What we just experienced on Thursday is a result of the frequency shootout to over the limit allowed. And what TCN said is because power is not being evacuated. Of course, there are also other scenarios when there is inadequate, some people call it rejection of load from distribution companies. For some obvious reasons, they could not take the allocated power. But I know in Abuja, we are always hungry for power. We take even more than what we are allocated. But be that as it may be, I think we need to look at the transmission infrastructure and see what reforms can be done to quickly reverse the trend that is happening. I'm happy to say that the split of TCN into TSP, Transmission Service Provider, and the Nigerian Independent System Operation will go a long way in apportioning specific functions for the two companies. The issue of grid stability is mostly going to be the responsibility of the Nigerian Independent System Operator because it's responsible for dispatch of power from a generation station to the end users and ensuring that also the liquidity function of the industry is sustained such that generation companies will be able to get their own portion of that revenue to satisfy the gas demand. And we know the gas companies now, there's a lot of debt which federal government is trying to come in to solve, but we don't want that to start to be accumulating. We want a situation whereby power that is generated is properly paid for by customers, and all stakeholders in the industry are being paid for the services they render. So transmission being still part of the government has to be reinforced in a number of ways. I know there's a lot of plan to expand the grid to make the lines ringed instead of being radial in nature. Problems we are having of lack of supply in part of the northern states is a result of the only lines linking Kano and Kaduna to Shiroro, which have fallen. If we have another side of it from Kainji through Sokoto, 330 kV, that would have provided a loop. So we will not only rely on the Ogaji, Enugu-Jos line, which is supplying not enough to these northern states. We will have a better form of supply. So I think that kind of redundancy must be provided by TCN. Another fundamental thing which also is missing, I'm happy to say something is being done, is the SCADA. It is the one that's supposed to monitor the dispatch of power to see what is happening in the transmission network, because it's supposed to be per second. The power that is delivered must be used by the end users, no overloading, so that the frequency cannot go down, and SCADA is in the best position to do that automatically. A human element is there. You cannot monitor the system 24/7. So you have to use that SCADA system to help in stabilizing the network. That is not existing. We are, as I know TCN is working through World Bank. They said 70% has been accomplished. So we look forward to when it is completed fully, such that the stability of the grid can be more guaranteed.
Thank you for that very robust analysis. I'll come back to you in the studio, Professor. I love that the conversation is being shifted to the discos, but it's still a little bit confusing because we're being told that Nigeria can generate 13,000 megawatts. That's a relatively new figure, I believe, to many people, because last we checked, that figure was closer to 4,000 megawatts, if I stand to be corrected on that. But so they're now saying that Nigeria can generate 13,000 megawatts, but the problem is that the discos are not are not able to. Please, can you help us unpack this statement? Because, you know, it's a very loaded statement and it's conflicting in so many ways.
Okay. Let me start from where Engineer Tambuwal ended, and I will now dovetail into your argument. To an extent, it was talking about the fact that, let me make it non-technical, that we had this centralized grid and have advocated the centralized grid forever. It wasn't going to work. Now they are trying to have a situation in which the grid is structured in such a way that if something affects a part of the grid, the entire country will not shut down. For goodness sake, why are we having that in the 21st century in the country? We have a centralized grid that if anything happens here, it affects everybody. Why not put it in kind of batches so that whatever happens here may not affect here, so that you deal with these isolated cases? That's what they're trying to fix at the level of TCN. And TCN is also being restructured now with independent system operator and other components. Fine, but that does not stop might not stop the problem that you mentioned. You mentioned the fact that some discos are rejecting load. For instance, if you are to take like 500 megawatts, you look at the mathematics of translating that into money from your consumers. If you are not sure of reaping the benefit of the megawatts allocated to you, some discos will reject. And once load is rejected, it affects the grid. Of course, it could also lead to grid collapse because you can't store all these megawatts. That's one thing. But in all this, we need to ask a question. Where is the regulator? Even TCN is a regulated entity. Granted that it's federal government owned, DISCOs, GENCOs, and other service providers in the power sector, they are regulated entities. If we had something similar to effective farm regulation, an independent regulator, so to speak, if anything happens, for instance, if something happens in the banking sector, particularly a bank, you look at the CBN, right? If anything happens in the telecoms, we look at NCC, right? For the power sector, we have a regulator. The fact that we've been having frequent shutdown of our national grid means somebody who ought or is in charge should be asked relevant questions. If the players are not playing by the rules or they are not really discharging their function the way they're supposed to be doing so under the law, of course you sanction them. Irrespective of the fact that it's a government entity, is a regulated entity. So if you have,
so you're saying NERC are not doing their work?
I've always been advocating for better performance on the part of the NERC because all is not well in the power sector. DISCOs have been rejecting laws. We have tons and tons of hydro megawatts. Even the NIPP under the Obasanjo regime, they have hydro megawatts that couldn't be uploaded to the national grid because the capacity of our national grid is restricted. It's like putting excessive liters of refined or crude in a weak pipeline. As it travels through the pipeline, it's going to burst. Now we look for alternatives to ferry or carry petroleum products. The same thing for the power sector. We now have to start to look at alternatives. Now, I think go back to starting too late. I read in the dailies that RFP was issued by request for proposals, so to speak, was issued by Lagos State government for investment in the power sector. We are aware that one was issued in 1999-2000 with the Heron thing.
Yeah.
If we had sustained the tempo, as far back as 1999-2000, perhaps most states will have had their decentralized state-based grid, and all this problem will have been solved. Now, we're not going back to a journey that began with, where we always give that to him, the current administration, the president, when he was governor of Lagos State. The journey started then. Of course, we veered off completely. And now, almost several years after, we're going back to the same journey. Lagos State is now issuing a request for proposals to start what had started before. I have a problem with that. You shouldn't be take one step forward and take 20 backward as a country. We're all in it together.
Yeah. But we also know the political angle to it. We also know when Tinubu tried doing that, we know the hell Olusegun Obasanjo gave him. But all of this you are saying, it's not new. When Nigeria started to industrialize during the colonial times, we had nucleated grid system.
Yeah.
We had the man in Plateau that supplied the tin, Nesco,
Yes.
that still exists today, which is about the oldest power plant.
Yes.
We had the Jora that came up around that time.
Oldest.
We had a couple of other power plants. In the 40s, American Timber Plywood in Sapele also had their own nucleated grid system, albeit very small systems. Why can't we just revert back to all of those areas and have an... Because I still understand that till date, the Nesco man, that's one of the oldest are still running power plant. NASCO, yeah, still has his independent, what's it called?
Captive.
Generation, and he has his market audience, and he has a grid system at which he supplies them. We're also doing great job. Like I hear there's one in Lekki Phase 1 here that supplies some customers around this axis. So why can't we, and there are numerous estates, Redeem Camp is one of them. Yeah, why can't we just go back to that system?
You see, you asked a very important question. When we had the old repealed Electric Power Sector Reform Act, 2005, we said, oh, you're taking us backwards, right? This law was not intended and cannot be used to operationalize the power sector, because by its name, it was at best a piece of legislation meant to reform. By its name, reform. I said we needed a new piece of legislation, and I pointed out about 250 errors in the old laws. It took us a while. The question that you asked, if Lagos State faced the same problems when they had their IPPs, they wanted to, in the day, they had about 18 megawatts. The rebellion will use like 15 or 10. In the night, the entire 18 is idle. The Lagos State government, now under Fashola, approached the discourse. Let's sell these idle megawatts to our neighbors who need it. They said, no, franchise, my franchise area. And I said, what kind of arrangement is that? It doesn't make commercial sense to me.
I can imagine.
I had megawatts that I'm not using. We have homes in darkness, and you are saying I can't give them megawatts. Okay, you supply them megawatts. You say I don't have megawatts, but I have. Let me give to them. You say you can't give to them.
Like I don't redeem card.
So and they want to call, and I said even in the first instance, Lagos State that went to federal government to seek to get licenses to do off-grid was wrong, because under the old law, unamended law, Lagos had power to even issue its own license and do off-grid. We've always had all those things. When we started centralizing things, and each time you discuss, you still talk about the bloated nature of this government at the center. We over-centralize everything, including our grid structure. I think it had to do with our political consideration and, politics, because...
Was it the vestiges of military era?
Part of it, yeah. Because instead of allowing states and regions to develop at their own levels, you wanted everything centralized. So we must develop together.
I want to come to Abuja.
So if they don't have electricity in Bayelsa, if you don't have in Kano, they can't have in Bayelsa. If you don't have in Bayelsa, they can't have in Kebbi. Why must that be?
I want to come to Abuja. Engineer, sir, why have we not been able to get it right, even with even SCADA model, owing to the fact that we've had many iterations to be able to run the TCN? At some point, we brought some people from Manitoba Hydro. We've done all sorts. Siemens and all of that. God even knows where the Siemens deal is today. Why have we not been able to buffer this grid, put in the transmission line that ought to come in, revamping of the grid? We've been talking about, it didn't take Egypt a long time to do this, Prof, now. It's not rocket science. It didn't take Bangladesh a long time to do it, engineer Abubakar Atiku now.
Yeah, what you have said is right. When Manitoba was invited in to manage a transmission company, I was incidentally the deputy managing director working with them, and eventually they handed over to me. I can say there is some gains because they are the same management contract that have prepared the split of TCM by ring-fencing the ISO and TSP functions as it is now, which make it readily available for this transition to take place. Apart from that, I think there has been a lot of expansion plan by that particular management contract. We were able to come up with different options under different donor agencies. Funding were obtained. And unfortunately, the subsequent management that came in could not strictly abide by all those plans, and a lot of projects which are not necessarily required to strengthen the grid were embarked instead of the critical ones that will ensure proper delivery of power to where it is and evacuation of power from a generating station to the end users. So we have these issues, and I think what needs to be done is for the present government to look at all those issues and see how they can restructure in line with the TCN reforms to ensure that this will go to the drawing board and implement all those good projects that are intended to bring in stability of the grid. And I also want to comment on the issue of the new Electricity Act, which has empowered the states to really go into the mini grids, which unfortunately we are not seeing progress made in this direction, apart from few states which have enacted the laws and started granting license. Very few of them are reluctant, for whatever reason, to come in and support the government and support themselves in empowering their states to generate. We have this AKK, which I think provides a good opportunity in the near future to have generating stations up in the north. We need, like Kaduna is there, awaiting completion of this gas line. We should have another power station in Kano, Jigawa, or Maiduguri. All these should be supported to really make generation adequate, because without adequate generation, no matter what you do, you are bound to have this problem. And on the part of distribution too, we are having a lot of challenges because most of the companies, as they continue to use legacy infrastructure that they inherited. They do not expand. Can you imagine, like yesterday also we were in Niger State, the governor has to come in to repair about 200 or more transformers for injection into the ADC grid. That is commendable. We need that kind of partnership. It shouldn't be for free. At least the distribution companies should be able to pay for such investment to the government that put in this kind of effort to stabilize power, in addition to providing the mini grids that are necessary to support the expansion of distribution nationwide. Thank you.
So, Tambuwal, before we begin to summarize, we've been talking about the grid. How about the energy mix, which is also something that shows up in the literature, and renewable energy, and rural electrification program? You know, all these phrases come up, but at the end of the day, it's just grid, and transmission, and the concern of the discourse. Are you with me? Dr. Tambuwal, you didn't hear me? Oh, okay. Prof.
I can react to that. I can react to that. I have a problem with rural electrification, a very serious one. It was one of the agencies advocated should be scrapped.
You say it should be scrapped?
Yes. Even right from the era of the Electric Power Sector Reform Act 2005, I said the idea of rural electrification agency, a rural electrification fund didn't make sense to me. And the logic was simple. Under the unamended constitution, even off-grid was for states. But under the Electric Power Sector Reform Act repealed, off-grid was still centralized, contrary to what the constitution says. So when we advocated for a new law, we got one. I was still disturbed, perhaps unhappy, that we still retain rural electrification agency, a rural electrification fund. And I said, scrap rural electrification agency. The funds in there, give to states. If we are going to do electricity at the level of the rural communities, low-level generation, off-grid solution, mini-grid, and so on, extensive solarization, that cannot be on-grid. If it's not on-grid, then it is off-grid. If it's off-grid, that is best handled by the state government and in collaboration with the local government. We had 774 local governments. If we are in 4 years, if we are able to get one local government to generate 1 megawatt every other year, meaning in 4 years of the term of an administration, each local government will have generated at least 2 megawatts of off-grid solution, renewable solar. Then add 774 multiplied by 2. That gives us almost half of our existing capacity. And they've been spending money, they've been doing expensive street lights, humongous amount of money. I had a problem with that. I still have a problem with that as a Nigerian with conscience. And I'm still saying, rural electrification agency should be scrapped. rural electrification funds, whatever amount in there should be channeled to respective state government to work with their respective local government to start rural electrification. The closest level of government to the rural is the state government and the local government. Good thing we have the regime which is currently strengthening the local government administration. Let your Abeokuta start local government embark on 1 megawatt initiative for 2 years. Look for funders, supporters, small scale investors to do solar here, to do biomass here, to do all kinds of, just generate 1 megawatt in 2 years for Abeokuta South, Odeda, and others. This too for Kano, all the local government. We need staggered, decentralized solutions. Completely off grid. We can't rely on the grid, it's weak, and to replace the grid is expensive. Good thing we are now looking at the states, which Engineer Tambuwal also mentioned. Now we have a law that says states can also play. How many of the states are playing? They are challenged because no prudent investor will bring his or her money into your state unless your state is able to play by the rules. If your state is one that doesn't honor its contractual obligation, no prudent investor will come in there because it's a question of bankability, ability to recoup its investment with profit. So if the indices there are not aligning, if I'm not seeing those signals in your state, I'm not going to go and invest in your state. So the states must be competitive to attract investment. So if Ogun State is able to add 5 megawatts every 2 years, not through state, not direct funding, they should attract investors to, because we have industries springing up there. And a lot of these industries are now looking in the direction of captive, embedded. And if, for instance, if this studio is generating 1 megawatts and your capacity is less than that, you should be able to set your neighbors and make money so that you continue to service your infrastructure. That's where we should go, not about franchising, you can't move, if I don't move. The world has gone past that level.
Okay, Dr. Tambuwal, your comments on rural electrification, off-grid, and renewable energy, and options as we continue to search for a way forward, solution.
Yeah, I will not, thank you very much. I will not completely advocate for scrapping of rural electrification agency in as much as they are doing the role they are expected to do, which I believe they are doing. What I expect is that the state government, like as mentioned, should also endeavor to look for investors who can come in and provide such mini-grids to stabilize electricity in their areas. I know Jigawa State has taken the bull by the horn by inviting investors. Right now, they have entered the MOU. I was part of that move to install 50 megawatts in the first stage for their own state, and possibly even use the one that they can use to the neighboring Kano State, which will be in their need of this power. So like as advocated, no matter how small, even if it is 2 megawatts, 10 megawatts, each state, particularly the northern states, should ensure that they have entered into this program of mini-grid by having this in their own respective states. And that will, of course, eliminate a lot of these power shortages in the event of a grid having issues like we are seeing recently. So state government really have the mandate now, like I said earlier, to come in and provide that power solution to the citizens of the country.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Tambuwal. In fact, somebody sent a message now that in Lekki, the IPP that Rufai referred to, that they use solar panels on the sea, and that it works. And, you know, not every community has to be on the national grid.
Go extensive solarization. Extensive. Some countries have like kilometers, like a field, massive. just for solar farms. Like
as they do in Europe, for example.
I mean,
anyway, thank you very much, Professor Yemi Oke, for joining us. And thank you also, Dr. Tambuwal, for joining us to discuss this very important subject. Because from Band A to Band E, once the national grid collapses, the nation...
What band are you on? You're a band. You should be,
all the bands
you should be on band A.
All the bands are the same.
Band A is for rich people.
We don't get regular electricity. But thank you very much, Prof. Thank you, Doctor.